The PIVOT-2 trial is a phase 1-2 study combining NKTR-214 together with Nivolumab in patients with solid tumor malignancies. The initial data was as a phase 1 to identify the recommended phase 2, and in the phase 1 dose escalations, we tested 5 different doses in different scheduling, and ultimately we recognized the recommended phase 2 as NKTR-214 0.006 milligram per kilogram and Nivolumab 360 milligram, both giving IV as an outpatient regimen every 3 weeks. And the initial data from that was presented last year at SITC, we had a very promising responses. We have a 64% response in the melanoma cohorts, and initially we had a 46% response rate into the renal cell carcinoma, and only in 5 patients that we enrolled into the lung cancer, we have 3 out of 6 patients who are responding. What was interesting in NKTR-214 combination with Nivolumab, and that's what we picked up early on, that we see activity not only in the PD-L1 positive, where you really expect single agents Nivolumab or single agent anti-PD-1 to do well, but we've seen a very good responses and deep responses into the PD-L1 negative, where anti-PD-1 not necessarily doing a great job into those patients' populations. And furthermore, the data was presented at this ASCO. We have seen that as the data matures, many patients who were stable disease continued to have a good response, and they transformed from a stable disease to partial response. And some patients who already were partial responders continue to deepen their response, and even including in patients who are PD-L1 negative and achieving very deep responders. Same thing with the non-small cell lung cancer. And those 5 patients who all of them were PD-L1 negative, 3 out of those were responders, and 2 out of these PD-L1 negative responders converted to be complete responders. That's the encouraging part. Obviously, the data has to be matured more. This is a preliminary safety and efficacy data, so we'll have to see how this data matures and translate into the final form. But the encouragement, and why we call it a promising, is because the results that we really see into the PD-L1 negative population. And to further encourage us to see that, we also reported this meeting about 10 patients of urothelial cancer who had 6 out of 10 responders, and 3 out of these responders are PD-L1 negative. And 2 out of these 3 PD-L1 negative responders also achieved complete response. I think some of them were unconfirmed complete response. But nonetheless, these patients' populations in urothelial cancer who are PD-L1 negative carry poor response rate to single agents immunotherapy. And recently, the FDA alerted us that they stopped enrolling single agents anti-PD-1 because it was inferior to chemotherapy. So that's indicating that these patients are really in unmet need. When you see responses, this is encouraging. Very early data, very preliminary data, but when you talk about the promise, that is the source of the promise, the deep responses in PD-L1 negative. The data was presented at ASCO demonstrated that NKTR-214 in combination with Nivolumab achieved the pre-specified efficacy criteria for first-line metastatic melanoma, first-line renal cell carcinoma, and first-line urothelial cancer. So at the moment, I think the plan is to go to registrational trial, randomized trials to test the true efficacy, which is the ultimate test to see if these drugs truly demonstrate superiority over single agent and under standard of care. So in melanoma, the randomized trials will be NKTR-214 plus Nivolumab against Nivolumab. And if this trial demonstrates superiority, then I think this regimen could be the first standard of care. Obviously, we have to wait for this trial to start and mature and see the results.